Welcome to SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community. This is our first late afternoon broadcast. I'm Joe Wilson, Senior Partner and CEO of SorWil Technology Solutions. I'm here with Kathryn Hancock, our Senior Marketing Director. And today our special guest is Lisa Haack, the Executive Director for the Leavenworth County Development Corporation. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're excited to talk to you. There's a lot going on economically in Leavenworth County. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Well, I came to Leavenworth as a military dependent.
Okay.
My dad was teaching at the fort at the CGSC, and I met and married a local.
Okay.
We got married, and then we went off and did the military thing. I followed him around, and we had 2 children. And then he came back to retire, and I thought, I need to go back to school and finish that degree that I didn't finish. So I did. Went to KCC,
Okay.
finished my associates, and then I went on to KU.
Rock Chalk.
Yeah.
And got my bachelor's in business administration. And so that's when I saw this job listing for an economic development coordinator. I had no idea what it was, but it sounded very interesting. And I knew it sounded like it would have a positive impact on the community that I call home. So I applied, and they took a huge chance by hiring me. And that's how I got to this job. I have been here since 2017 is when I was hired.
I just missed you.
Yeah.
I left in 15, 16.
We left in 17.
Oh, so we just
Oh,
missed
did you?
you.
February of 2017.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
just
wow.
missed you.
Yes.
So Steve Jack hired you then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Loved working with Steve Jack. We did a lot for the business park together and trying to get internet out there, because originally when the first business park came out, they didn't have any internet.
Okay.
And so that was a struggle to bring people in. And I worked with Spectrum. Back then it was Time Warner, a guy by the name of Stan Addison. I'll never remember the number of conversations we had about how we could bring internet into it without having to build it. It was like $20,000 to get it there.
Okay.
So it was a big struggle. I know the park has it now. I know that's one of those things that we think about all the time now, is where we're going to get the IT infrastructure for a lot of those areas. So very familiar with LCDC. I think that the corporation does a lot of good work. You'll know I ran for county commissioner. Unfortunately, I didn't win, but one of the topics was economic development in Leavenworth County.
Hot topic.
Super hot topic. The county hired a development director that didn't really work out, but LCDC has been here for so many years working with private partnerships, which I think is really, really awesome, because you have buy-in not just from local government, but from private partnerships. What is LCDC doing to try to drive more economic development to Leavenworth County? What are some of the things you've accomplished?
Well, I mean, our biggest, most recent project that we always like to talk about is Hill's Pet Nutrition.
Okay.
That came to us in 2020, I think it was. Yes, it was during the pandemic. And it came to us from the Kansas Department of Commerce, one of our major partners. And we worked with them. Steve was working the business attraction at that time. So he was with the team, and they met weekly on virtual meetings, which was very new at that point.
Yeah.
And actually, that whole team that worked together didn't meet each other till the first city commission meeting.
Oh, wow.
So it was a pretty innovative, pathway to the project. And the project was announced in 2021, and there they are. It's the largest manufacturing company to ever invest in Leavenworth County, or the largest amount of capital investment, I should say. It's up to $450 million that they're investing in that park.
Wow.
Close to about 100 people is how many they're hiring,
My
which is,
brother-in-law works there.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Very cool. That's a really small amount for that big of a project, but that's because it's so highly automated, which is happening in the world today due to, workforce shortages. They're having to find ways, manufacturing companies having to find ways to automate. So that's, and they produce wet pet food. So the food comes in frozen on trucks. They have a whole process that they do at the production plant, and then they package it back up in the cans and they send it off to companies to be sold. That is, one of our largest, if not the largest project we've ever worked. And that has spurred other economic development because you have DSM Firmenich, who is almost complete with their project.
Okay.
And that is a company that makes an ingredient in a pet food. So just Hills not only bringing their own capital investment, but also bringing ancillary business. Not to forget about the residential that they're expanding the
People are
population.
living in the communities.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
What about I know that there's a lot of other things going on, but the big question is, are they currently paying property tax on that building, and how did that all come about? How's that working?
Right. So we're talking about the incentive.
Mhm.
So the city of Tonganoxie has a tax abatement policy, and Hills did qualify for that tax abatement. It was 100% 10-year tax abatement, but there's a certain portion of that mill that is held harmless by state statute that goes directly to the school. So day one, the schools receive funding from that portion of the property tax. Also, they are paying a pilot payment in lieu of taxes. And I did bring a few notes just because some of this data for me is, sometimes hard to forget or to remember. But so that will be, it's from a 12 mil value. It'll generate approximately $1.9 million over 10 years. So it'll be proportionally distributed to each taxing entity, including the city and the USD 464, the county, the city, the library, the Recreation Commission, and the state. Okay. So they are contributing to the community from day one. Not to forget about the dog park that they've participated in developing. Okay. So, of course, they would do that. And their participation in many of the community events, such as they have an event called Spooktacular during the Halloween season, and then back-to-school festivals and career fairs. So they're a contributing member of the community.
After 10 years, what's that?
They'll go to full property taxes.
Do we have any what does that look like?
Good question. I need to find out. So, I mean, I know how to do that.
I've heard a bunch of numbers. I've heard like $3 million. I've heard like
a good one.
$5 million.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, it's all public information. Mm-hmm. You can look up you look at the value of the building in all the property. Mm-hmm. You multiply that times they pay on 25% of their assessed value. Wow. So which that is compared to houses, which pay on 11% of their assessed value. So 25% is a lot if you think about it. And that's why it's what is so great about these industries that they're paying a lot more property taxes. And that's a good thing. That's money that's going to our communities. They're paying for roads, for services that we all want in our communities to be safe and that sort of thing. But so where was it? We talked about that. So they pay on that, and then you multiply that amount times the mill levy. And I think, I don't want to even quote, you'd have to multiply that and then figure that out.
Okay.
Each year.
No, that's great. One of the things that I've also heard is, once again, I learned so much running for office, is your job in balancing all these different communities. Tonganoxie got that. Were there other cities that felt left out? Is that one of the struggles that you battle with, is making sure that everybody feels like they're part of the game? They're getting a piece of the pie. Great way to put that. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, I think that is a very natural feeling for everybody. The fact is, companies that are looking for places to locate are looking for land that is developed. They are not looking for a piece of ag land, generally speaking. Sometimes there's unique, situations. They are looking for land that is graded to 2% level. They are looking for infrastructure. They are looking for all the utilities to be in the park. They're looking for it to be zoned, all of those things. So, when I'm getting these requests for information from our partners or directly from the companies, I have to think, okay, do we have this property? They're wanting a greenfield site, or shovel-ready site. Okay. There are only a few places in the county that have those. And so if they if one community doesn't have it, I can't force it. I can't make it happen. So that's pretty much, I mean, I have the inventory I have.
Sure. So if we had more business parks and more locations, we would have essentially more inventory.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Or empty buildings.
Or empty buildings.
For industry, yes, that would be helpful.
Does LCDC just focus on industry, or are you looking at bringing other businesses as well?
Well, our focus, so the economic development, there's a lot of players in the county. We've got someone at each of the cities that kind of focuses on retail, and it's handled differently too. So we see at LCDC, we have a staff of 3. So we have to figure out what is the most effective. And so we see the economic drivers, the ones that cause other development in an increase in demand for retail and the need for houses. We see those, the drivers for that as being the manufacturers, industrial, primary companies. Those are companies that are making a product and selling it outside the community. And then that's bringing new dollars, new wealth into the community. So anyway, and they're the ones that are hiring lots of people that are affecting how much population is in the community. They're also paying those big property taxes that are providing money for the things that we want in our community. So we are focused on industrial and primary industry.
Gotcha. Okay. One of the challenges recently was the cut in funding from the county. They cut you guys down to half. Is that right?
Well,
even less than that.
Yes, it's a lot less than that.
Okay.
So a few years ago, in I would like to say the year right, it used to be that the county would fund both LCDC and the Port Authority. And they, in 2022, they stopped funding LCDC and rerouted that funding and went to the port, sent it all to the Port Authority and said, LCDC asked the Port Authority. That's fine. And then the next year, they significantly cut that because they wanted to hire their own person. And the last few years, LCDC has been requesting funding from the Port Authority. That's where they've been getting the economic development funding, most of it, for their budget. And this year, the county has said, we are going to give the Port Authority $23,500, which is a significant reduction when you're talking about almost $200,000 back in 2021 for both organizations.
Can you explain to the audience the difference between the Port Authority and you guys?
Oh, that's a great.
Yes.
That's great.
Sorry.
Yes,
Before
and
we get
that's
into
a
it all.
common
Yeah.
question, and I understand completely. So Leavenworth County Port Authority, they were established in 1969, and they were supposed to encourage economic development along the Missouri River. Back when that was used a lot for getting products from point A to point B. As that changed over the years, rather than dissolve the Port Authority, they changed their mission to encourage development throughout the county. And one of the interesting things that the Port Authority can do is they can own land. So they have 2 parks in Leavenworth County. They have what's left of they developed the Gary Carlson Business Park in Leavenworth, and then the Urban Hess Business Center in Tonganoxie. And there are a few lots left that they still own. So that's one of the things that they do. They are a board of 7. They are volunteer board, and they are appointed. So there are 2 appointed from the county. There are 2 appointed from the city of Leavenworth, and then there's 1 appointed by each of the cities of Basehor, Lansing, and Tonganoxie. So that's kind of the Port Authority. They don't have a staff, so they contract LCDC to do all their staff work. LCDC, Leavenworth County Development Corporation, is the 501c7 public-private organization that is, we do economic development. We are facilitating capital investment and jobs for Leavenworth County. And so we have a board of 27. Thank you. We have a new board member right here. Joe, we're really glad to have you on the board.
Thank you.
We have an executive committee of 5. We are who does a lot of the work, and then we are guided by bylaws. We have a staff of 3, and I think that's basically it for LCDC.
Okay.
We do economic development focusing on industrial, but we can help any business, but we do it through business attraction. And then we also work with existing businesses. We help them with retention and expansion.
And one of those cases was actually Cereal Ingredients.
Yes.
They were looking at relocating, as I recall.
Oh, yes. That was a while back. So Cereal Ingredients came here in 2005. They came here and they looked at a building in the Gary Carlson Business Park. I think it was the 40,000 square foot building. And they had 35 people that they employed. They had a lot of patents. So they located there, and they've since expanded 3 times, and they are now up to 200 employees. And they make good wages, and they have great benefits. There was a time that they expanded to St. Joseph. The reason behind that was because the client for which they expanded required them to do that for insurance purposes. So because they were concerned about if a hurricane or a tornado came through and took out one production facility, they wouldn't want everything gone. So they had to, that was part of their insurance. And I've heard that in other situations too. I don't think that's a unique situation.
You must like being over there because it smells like blueberries all the time, huh?
Sometimes it's syrup, and sometimes we tried, I don't know how much longer, but Casey's now has cherry cake donuts. The cherry in it is made by Cereal Ingredients.
Oh, that's
Oh, wow.
Which Cereal Ingredients, I should say, they've changed their name to CII Foods because they don't do just ingredients in cereal.
Oh, that's
They
awesome.
do some other things too. But they do make food particulates and inclusions. They could be, like I said, the little cherry in that donut. They could be a blueberry in certain muffins. They could be a little speck on a sour cream and onion Dorito. Just
Cool.
all kinds of little things. Almost everything you see when you walk down a grocery aisle in the bakery type bread stuff, probably they have one of their products in those products.
That's really cool.
Isn't that cool?
That is. In response to this reduction of funding, the county kind of gave you guys the directive or suggestion to attempt to look for other ways of funding. Can you kind of talk about that?
So yes, so we did put together a committee, tasked with trying to figure out ways. One of the ways they thought of was, well, a portion of a mill, and then so anyway, the Port Authority hired Golden Shovel Company, which agency is the name of the company. They are a company that specializes in marketing for economic development organizations, and they do specialize in these kind of political campaigns. So the Port Authority said, rather than going ahead and purchasing the campaign package to go ahead and go for that, they said, let's check and see if there's even an appetite for this. We want to do this, we want to think about this and be smart about it. So that is why they decided to go with Golden Shovel's recommendation to do a survey. And so the survey went out. Of course, there were a lot of questions. Who is this? What was, what's going on? But that's what it is, to see if the public has an appetite for this kind of thing. The thing is if you're not funding economic development, that's going to be detrimental to your community. If you're not growing, you're dying. It's just the way it is. And it's not, it also, when you grow your community through economic development, you're spreading the tax base, therefore removing that burden from those homeowners. And gosh knows we, as a community, have a lot of organizations that are able to, what's the word? They don't have to pay taxes. So we need to balance that. We need to have industry in our community planned, not just thrown up everywhere or something to affect the beautiful ag land that we have in our county. We want it to be in a planned location.
Was that survey sent to certain people or certain demographics?
Yes.
I know not everybody got it.
Right.
Concerned about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair. So the company that did it, they wanted to reach people who are most likely to vote in a mail-in ballot. I don't know how they get that data, but they're the professionals.
So was it sent out by you guys directly or the Port Authority or a certain, because the city of Leavenworth said this is not us.
Yes, correct. No, they did it. Golden Shovel did that.
On behalf of the Port Authority.
The port. Okay.
Except recently, because we did hear some frustration about who is this spam, that kind of thing. So we let them know, and so they provided to us some social media posts to put on our social media to kind of say, hey, this is the Port Authority that's asking this, and by the way, here's a link to another survey. They're planning to do it via social media, via phone calls, emails, and then they're going to have some stakeholder or focus groups.
That's interesting. Have you spoken with the other cities? Is everybody on board? Does everybody agree with this? Is there a consensus, or is this just kind of something that we're spearheading on our own?
I think what it is first, we find out if there was even an appetite, and then that'll be the next step. They'll work through that with the partners.
That's interesting. Do we have any idea of where that survey's leaning yet? Can you
No,
talk
but
about
it's gonna be quick because we have a meeting, I think, on the 10th to find the results of everything.
Oh, really?
So it's almost done. I mean, it's over halfway through. So yeah.
And let's say that this doesn't go forward, we don't move forward. Is there another plan in place?
Well, the next plan will come from Golden Shovel. That's part of their deal. They're going to make a recommendation as to how. And it's in their best interest, to be honest, because their reputation is at stake too. Sure. And they want to see us, continue to work with them. So they're going to be honest. And if they don't think it's possible, they're going to say, maybe we wait. Maybe we, look at some other things. So
does LCDC have a plan in place if that's the case?
Well, that's what that will be discussed. There's a lot of things that have been discussed, kind of floated, but I think this survey will be the starting point of what comes next.
I know I sat through those commission meetings. Both of us sat through those commission meetings. We had so many people there on LCDC's behalf talking and showing support, and how valuable you and Diana and Mary are. You guys are rocks in the community. I know there's a number of private partners that are part of the organization. What percentage of that is that are private partners versus county dollars that you're getting?
Okay, so that I don't say the wrong number, if you'll just let me pull up my budget, which is right here. Okay, so public, we have, I'm sorry about this, private sector, it's about 21% of the 2025 budget.
Wow, that's I think that's really amazing that there are a number of so many private people that are so invested in their community. They're putting business dollars in to try to help bring in more business.
Absolutely, because they know it's going to benefit the entire county. We're all going to benefit, and they also know the need to help spread that tax base to increase that property taxes through industry.
One of the things that we talked about during my campaign also was the Gateway Bridge project.
Yes. This campaign.
I know. I keep bringing that up, but I just can't help. Even though I once again I lost, and it stabs me in the heart every time I say that. I learned so much about our community and about what we have going on here. And it was Commissioner Jeff Culbertson that kind of told me about the Gateway Bridge project and about trying to connect Eisenhower with 152 going to the airport, and how we could reduce the burden of stops and getting around and how long it takes to get to the airport. And he felt that ride could be there'd be 10 minutes or right around there and from the airport here. And that would fill up this business park and really create a need for possibly even another business park somewhere. What do you know about that? Have you talked about that? Is that anything that's been discussed?
It definitely has been his, he's been pushing that. And you know what? I would love it if that happened. I mean, you are exactly right. That's one of the biggest challenges that we have attracting a company for the Leavenworth Business and Technology Park. The amount of time that it takes to get from there to I-70 is a lot in that industry. Every time they have to slow down because someone is turning left on that road, every time they have to stop at a stoplight, that's time. And that's money for them. So, man, if they could just get on Eisenhower and head straight to 435, that would be fantastic. I just think that it's trying to find funding for it. Don't you think? It's like, it
was like the KDOT-MoDOT
yes.
rivalry. It's a little hard sometimes.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Well, I think that Commissioner Culbertson said there's private funding for the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting on KDOT and MoDOT's radar
Okay.
to build it. And I believe that cultivating a relationship with, some of the communities that are really close by, I think Parkville is super close,
Mm-hmm.
that could help spur that movement. I think some of the question lies on there's some land that would need to be provided to provide access.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's where some of the concern is,
Taking away some farming land.
the farmland would be lost and whether people would be open to that or not.
Yes.
One of the things that's really come up in discussion is, does Leavenworth County have an identity crisis? Do we want to be this rural community where we're ag land, people are coming here to retire, it's all open country, but yet we also want Chipotle on every corner
Mm-hmm.
or
Yes, I do.
Me too.
Chick-fil-A or name your business.
Right.
Have you run into that? Is that something
Oh,
that you've
yes.
seen? I mean, what would you say to people?
Well, I think that people need to understand that we want to plan for where industry goes. Nobody wants to take the beautiful ag land if they don't want it, to sell it. I think that's what makes our county so unique. We have that mix. I think it makes, one of the reasons so many people stay here, like when they come to work. I'm thinking of Fort Leavenworth. How many people, according to this U.S. Census Bureau, we have 9,000 veterans in this community.
Wow.
And I believe that it is because of the unique mix that we have. We have a little bit of suburban and we have a lot of ag. And I think it's a beautiful blend. We all love it. We feel like we're a small town atmosphere, but really close to the big city if we want to go there.
Yep.
That's what I hear from everybody, and they want to keep it that way. So I think the important part of that is making sure that we do understand that there is a place for industry and there's a place for ag, and it can be both in our community.
One of the drawbacks that I've heard to the second business park is that it's so close to residential neighborhoods that may be a deterrent. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So I would say the biggest challenges are the proximity or the time it takes to get to I-70. And then there are those houses on the west side. However, for one project a couple of years ago, the city, that was an issue. We were really seriously looked at for a company that was going to take the whole thing. But they said, really worried about that because even though that property was zoned first, light industrial, they know those people are still possibly going to, raise Cain about having a big company next door. And they can't, they just don't want to take that risk. So the city, with their engineering company or engineer at the city, put together a plan for a berm that would include a berm and then trees that would kind of hide that. And that was acceptable. So that's what we kind of do. So we see some of these companies, when we put together submittals, if that's an issue, then we can provide that. I do believe it is taking a while to get someone to land there. We've been looked at several times very seriously. I think it's just going to take the right one. And unfortunately, it's hard for people to understand that these kind of projects do not happen quickly.
Yeah.
They take time. and I know it's hard to, why isn't it happening now? It takes time.
But what was the thinking? And I got this question a lot. What was the thinking of having two business parks right next to each other?
Actually, I wasn't there and I'm not sure what was said and discussed, but actually in my industry, having two business parks together is not a bad thing because when a company looks and sees there's an industrial park next door, oh, well, there's already established businesses. Oh, it's business friendly. Oh, it's already zoned. Oh, yeah. So it actually can be a positive thing.
Gotcha. There was talk, or is there other locations in the community? How does a city decide? Is it a city's decision to put a business park in? Does LCDC drive that? If we wanted a business park in one of the other communities, Baser, Lansing, who would make that decision? Is that something the LCDC approaches them with, or how does that work?
Well, it definitely is up to a city. Excuse me. If they want to, they absolutely could, of course. But for Port Authority, one of their efforts is to be an advocate for economic development. So I'm sure you've heard the Port Authority does have what's called an industrial site visioning committee. This is a committee.
I have not heard that.
Okay.
This is new.
It's I think they're 2 years old now. We haven't talked a lot about them recently. There hasn't been a lot of activity. Our focus has been other with funding. It's kind of taken precedence. But they put together a group of people that are interested in looking. Is there a possibility of developing another park? And if so, where? And so they brought in experts. They brought in the utility, Evergy, Gas, Kansas Gas, to kind of talk about what's important for a project. Mm-hmm. Where does the project need to be in proximity to a substation, that kind of thing. So that will help decipher, bring the list down of properties that could potentially be. There's all kinds of other things that have to happen. But one of the things, like you mentioned, you have to have a willing seller. You have to have somebody that's willing to sell the property. So that's one of the key issues too. The work will begin soon again, because we think it's going to be important to our effort for future funding. So the Port Authority is going to kind of reinvigorate that again.
Interesting. You mentioned it earlier. It's not, you can't just decide tomorrow you're going to be an economic developer and bring in all this. It takes time to cultivate relationships and to work with different groups of people. How difficult has that been for you?
Well, of course, there's challenges. Finding the right partners. I mean, obviously, we're partnered. We are the point of contact for the Kansas Department of Commerce, and then also our regional economic development group, KCADC, Kansas City Area Development Council. For some reason, I lost it there. Those are our two main sources for projects. So having a close relationship with them is key, absolutely key. Also, I work with, so the way we're structured is I oversee the operations of the organization, but I also do business attraction. Okay. And then Diana works with the existing companies and helps them overcome barriers to growth. And then Mary is our office manager. So through business attraction, I am trying to develop those relationships with our target market. So our target market are those developers in Kansas City, but also nationally in different cities. So I'm taking trips to different conferences where those people are and trying to develop relationships, meeting with them, going to events in Kansas City where those realtors and consultants are, and developing those relationships.
Exciting. One last thing, and then we'll kind of switch topics here, is let's talk about FIFA. Mm-hmm. You got FIFA spoke at the LCDC meeting. How is that going to impact Leavenworth County? How will that help us, aside from people that are soccer fans that want to go watch it? Mm-hmm. What can it do for our communities?
Well, of course, I don't know if you remembered, but David Pruente mm-hmm. from the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce came and talked about that, because he's on the mm-hmm. board that helped get the FIFA 2026 to Kansas City. And so we'll be one of the host cities. And so the radius, that map that he showed, I think it was a 2-hour radius showing the impact that FIFA will have. So there are going to be impacts here, obviously, in Leavenworth County. I think what we're going to see are people looking for day trips. People may be looking for things to do. So museums and parks and hotels. And I'm thinking that, if people want to put their home up for rent or VRBO or something, and go somewhere for a while. Because if I understand correctly, they're going to have some international flights due to that FIFA 2026. So that might be an opportunity for somebody to go overseas and rent out their house to people, because these are people, coming from all over the world. I don't know if we really understand the impact, because, soccer hasn't been as big in this part of the world as it is in other. Football. Football, I should say. So I think we're going to be surprised at the impact. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to gain some of that.
I think it's exciting. think the future
is.
for Leavenworth County is pretty exciting.
Yes.
So now we're going to kind of switch gears, and we're going to go to what's on your mind. And we'll start with Kathryn. Kathryn, what is on your mind
Every
lately?
time.
We always,
I won't go dark this time.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, after last week and stuff. My daughter's first birthday is this month.
Oh,
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's been a struggle to plan, but because what do you do for a 1-year-old? But it's exciting, and it went by so quickly.
how does it feel
Yeah.
to be a mother for a year?
Good.
Yeah.
Exhausting.
And plan for number 2 or 3?
Eventually, yes.
Oh,
And I can
man.
afford daycare for 2.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the 1-year mark.
You
Thank
survived.
you. I survived.
The next 17 years will go by just as quickly.
They do, don't they?
But they don't
Oh
go
my
away after
goodness.
that.
Well, and sometimes they do.
Yeah.
I'm so
I am
excited.
going to say, I think I will talk about the elephant in the room. Kansas City
My Aunt
Chiefs.
Lisa.
Woohoo!
The Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
And the Super Bowl, the three-peat,
Yes.
the magical three-peat. You know, are we going to overcome the barrier to the three-peat? Does that make Pat Mahomes the GOAT?
Oh, heck yes.
Yeah.
I'm so
He's
excited.
already.
Yes.
I
What
thought
a
you were
thing.
gonna say my Aunt Lisa.
No, not at all.
I call her Aunt Lisa.
No, I'm super excited for the game. I always hate when during football season how it's on Sundays because you're like so excited about football on Sundays, but it's like the end of the week at the same
And
time,
it's at 5:30.
and it's at 5:30.
Oh my goodness.
You can't
That's
party.
gonna be a
You can't
long
work
night.
tomorrow.
Well, I might have to take that day off. I might be looking at some
That might
PTO.
be a holiday.
It's
At
not
least,
gonna be a
at least a
holiday.
delay,
At
right?
least a delay. Yeah, that's right. All right, Aunt Lisa. What's
Oh gosh.
on your mind lately?
Getting back to the gym. I've let.
Oh,
I
yeah, I
know
haven't seen you in a while.
you haven't.
Harley and Jagger have been in
And-
the gym.
I know my kids, my son and his wife, they're just dedicated. But yeah, getting back. I have been working out at home, but there is something to, seeing those people that
That hold you
and saying,
accountable.
yeah,
Violently accountable.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to get for me to, but anyway, it doesn't matter. That's my goal. Get
This
back
week
to the
might be
gym.
the week to skip.
It might.
Because
Oh, gotcha.
The first week, normally the first 2 weeks of the year, the beginning of the year, the gym is always packed.
Yes.
You get those people who are, doing their, their yearly, I'm going to get healthy. I think because of the weather, today was the most people I've seen in the gym in a while.
Really?
It was packed with people I'd never seen before.
Okay.
So I don't know. It was hard to find equipment. It was super busy.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's going to level out at some point.
Right.
Hopefully everybody stays and it stays busy because people are staying on. They're doing the things they need to do to be healthy. But inevitably, I always see a decline at some point.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have for today. I didn't wear my nonprofit T-shirt today because I had the CTE. So we'll give a shout out to Peaceful, to Drake and his shirts. These are our new shirts. Why don't you model that shirt for us? We lifted our
Nice.
shirt, the logo on the sleeve.
I
I
like
wanted
that.
the logo to be larger on the sleeve. So shout out to International Clothes, LLC. Drake Childress does a great job for us. I don't know if LCDC needs shirts, but you might reach out to them.
Okay.
Shop local. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. And have a great week. Go Chiefs.